Wendy Carrillo, and this is Knowledge is Power on Power 106. It's Easter Sunday. Today's topic of conversation is the ideology of the head of the church, Pope Francis. My guest this morning is Felipe Agredano, theologian from Harvard, who's here discussing what many hail as advancements, while others find them to be controversial, of Pope Francis, a.k.a. Papa Pancho. Thank you for coming on to the show, Felipe.
Thank you for having me back, Wendy. It's great to be back.
Thank you. I know you've been a guest of the show many times before discussing religion, ideology, the ways in which religion plays an impact in our day-to-day of our lives. Mm-hmm. But Pope Francis recently became the head of the church, and he has been doing some things that many find to be controversial, other people find to be advancements for the church that's like stuck in a different era. It's mm-hmm. It's not in modern day society. Why don't you tell us about some of the things that he's done?
Well, you know what? He's been serving over a year now. And what some folks have really liked about him is that he made the church more contemporary, more relevant to today's society, right? And so you have him asking the questions: can the church service families that are divorced, individuals that for many years have been banned from taking communion? And he's also asked the question: who am I to judge LGBT if they have a good relationship with God? Can you be LGBT and have a spirituality? He says, who is the church to ask about this? And he's also welcomed, including atheists. He said, even atheists can be, you'll be surprised, can make it to heaven. So those are some that some people saw as faux pas, maybe in the church, and some people saw as welcoming, a fresher breath air, that this Pope would say this church could be inclusive of divorced Catholics, of children, born out of wedlock, of the LGBT community, of atheists, mm-hmm. And even the rabbis in New York. There's all this commotion around him saying, "Wow, we feel like he's our Pope as well." He's been welcoming also the Pentecostals, evangelicals. He's done outreach to many folks inside the church and outside the church, which is seen as very positive.
Right. So, is what he's doing a step in the right direction for the church?
Well, it
depends who you ask, I guess, right?
It depends who you ask in the church. For many within the church that have lost any connection to the church, this is a way that's opened the doors, that's welcomed many folks back into the church. For those that were very close, the conservative wing of the church, that are very close with John Paul II, very close with Benedict XVI, this is not something they want to hear. This is not the most welcoming Pope for them, and they are scandalized, and this is not what they want to hear. The conservative wing. I
think in my lifetime, I've lived through 3 different popes. John Paul II, Benedict, who that was controversial in how he just left, mm-hmm. and now this pope. In so many different ways. The only way that I remember is people just like, "Ay, el Papa," and they're usually talking about John Paul.
Yes, right? John Paul II, because he was there for so many decades.
And yes. This is our first Latino pope. Am I right?
Correct. It's
from Argentina.
First Pope from the Americas. And yes, just...
first Pope from the Americas,
yes.
And first Latino Pope in general.
Yes, exactly.
So that is, I guess, a step in the right direction for the church and just being more diverse and open to having different viewpoints.
Absolutely. This is it's a step in the right direction because it's also the first Pope outside of Europe, mm-hmm. From the third world. There's never been a Pope from Asia or Africa or from the Americas. So this is definitely a Latino Pope. The Catholic Church worldwide is also very, very big in Latin America,
right?
In all the countries of origin of Latinos. Mm-hmm. This is the first Pope from the Americas, from this Western Hemisphere, and it's really been a step in the right direction to reach out to the many communities of Catholics or Christians around the world.
It's so interesting to think the idea that if 2 people are Christian or Catholic, and particularly Catholic, I want to make this point in that if you're living together and not married, you can't partake in what is it? I'm sorry. What is
sacrament?
In sacrament.
The sacrament of communion.
Communion. And so he's changing that. Or it's considering or talking about, at least, bringing up to the conversation that can change.
He brought this up with the bishops, with the community of Catholic bishops, and he was met with some opposition because, remember, folks that aren't married haven't completed the sacrament of marriage, which is also a sacrament. and is not, they are therefore not allowed by traditional teachings of the Catholic Church. And we were reminded by this over and over by John Paul II and by Benedict, that you could not participate in communion if you were not married, or if you were born out of wedlock, or if you for Democrats in California, or if you're a liberal Democrat and voted pro-choice, you were not in communion with the Catholic Church.
Oh wow, that would remove me from a lot of the participation in the church. And this is where I think like a lot of people that I know, and myself included, are like on the fence. Like I believe, but so many of those rules are just so antiquated and really man-made that it makes me not feel connected, in the sense like I don't know why priests are not allowed to marry. Well, I actually do know. It all had to do with land and money, but nowhere in the Bible does it say a priest should not have a family. In fact, it goes against everything that Jesus stood for. So as we're discussing, and as things change within the church, and being open about the fact that rules change, how can we be more, I guess, in tune with what the Pope is doing, so that we direct the church, if that's our angle, to go into like modern society?
Well, you're right in terms about the Pope and priests not being married. That was more an HR problem. But now that we have human resources, and that priests are hired as employees, they can be hired and they can be given their pension. So that can be easily corrected. That's an easy fix.
Do you think that might happen?
That can be proposed, because it's just the same way it changed hundreds of years ago, where it was proposed that priests should not marry. It could be now proposed that they should marry,
right? And
that you fix HR. You get your pension. Now you don't give your pension out to your children, which was done in the old world. Land, right?
All that.
Inheritance.
Inheritance goes back to the church. Let's talk about LGBT rights. What has the Pope said?
Well, the Pope was caught off guard, and that's what Vatican said. He just said, "Who am I to judge if someone is gay and they have a good relationship with God, if they're spiritual? Who am I to judge?" This was hailed as a great step in the right direction, because it's welcoming. And he actually brought it back before the community of bishops, before the Catholic community of bishops, saying, can the church minister to the LGBT community? Can the church minister to divorcees? Can the church minister to people out of wedlock? This is definitely seen by many as a step in the right direction. By the conservative side of the church, this is not very welcoming. This is complete contradiction or change from their dogma, the tradition, and the doctrine of the church.
My guest this morning is Felipe Agredano, who is a theologian from Harvard, as we're discussing the many advancements or criticisms of Pope Francis on this Easter Sunday. Definitely religion plays such a huge role in people, whether you believe in it or whether you're a very deep, devoted person. There's a lot of changes happening within the church. And so tell us about what you were saying when it comes down to the Pope's upcoming visit to the U.S.
Well, the Pope's upcoming visit to the U.S. is remarkable, that he even proposed entering the United States from the Mexican border. Entering this as an immigrant, he said, what an amazing symbol or gesture this would be to come here as an immigrant.
Following the steps of so many.
Right. Following the steps of so many, and to equate himself to say, we're all immigrants, we're all brothers and sisters. But we believe maybe his handlers might have, or security reason or detail, might have given him a different advice not to come in through the Mexican border.
Well, he's also been in some controversy recently when it comes to Mexico, because Argentina, which is where he's from, is facing a large increase of cartels and just drug violence. And so he recently said that he would like Argentina to avoid the Mexicanization of the country, to which Mexico was incredibly upset, as they should, about this particular comment, and he's had to apologize, or his people had to apologize for that comment.
Oh yes, and this Pope has apologized for quite a few things. Besides saying the Mexicanization of Argentina, he also said Catholics should not breed like rabbits when he was in the Philippines, which many Catholics and many Filipinos also took this I said, why is he saying this? So there.
So you can't use like if you're using protection, like that's against religious dogma. Like you shouldn't be on the pill or have anything, but then you also shouldn't have a lot of babies.
Right. So how does this work? So I guess maybe he's maybe he's promoting abstention or some kind of other program. But you're right. That is he's also said, which has been controversial as we're getting into some of the surprising facts about him, that atheists would make it to heaven, and which also the next days Vatican also responded to that and said, well, actually that may not be true. Vatican atheists may not make it to heaven. So this Pope has been very fresh in just being very candid, very open. He's also asked for forgiveness from the Pentecostals in Latin America for the persecution. He's also stated that now he's told the Jewish community, now it's our turn to suffer, and he's said this in terms of the Christians that are being killed around the world by extremists. So he's a Pope that has reached out to Jews, reached out to atheists, reached out to LGBT, Muslim community as well, gone to pray at a synagogue, showed up without an invitation or surprising one of his good friends at a Pentecostal church. And so he's been a Pope that has really stepped outside of the box in his thought.
And he washed the feet of... what was the thing where he washed the feet of someone? Do you remember that?
Oh, wow. You know what? He's done that quite. He's washed the feet of many, but he's shown a lot of symbolism, a lot of gesture to folks outside of his religion, outside of his
from his inner circle. And I remember there was this one photo where there was an incredibly deformed man. He was like a hunchback, and he had a disease in which his face had a lot of bumps and unfortunately disfigured. And the Pope got him and blessed him and kissed him. And that, for many, was very inspirational because no other Pope has done that, at least not in the sense of a photo going viral in the cyber webs.
Yes, I remember
what did you call it? Cyberspace?
Cyberspace, the internet, social media.
The interwebs. My guest this morning is Felipe Agredano, who is a theologian from Harvard, as we're discussing the ideologies of Pope Francis on this Easter Sunday. So let's talk about Junipero Serra.
Yes.
Based out of California, you can tell us more about him.
Well, Pope Francis is, among other folks that he's canonized, he's moved to canonize John Paul II, but he also moved to canonize
Monsignor Romero.
Yes, Monsignor Romero. But he's made moves to canonize right wing and left wing of the church, to appease both sides of the church. But in this case, it's Junipero Serra, and the 300th anniversary of his birth, and also Monsignor Romero, which was stuck in canonization land for quite a bit.
Right, and Monsignor Romero, for those of you who don't know, was a Salvadorian priest who was killed during El Salvador's civil war in the 80s. And you can tell us more about Junipero Serra.
Yeah, and actually it would be good to mention also Monsignor Romero was actually killed during Mass.
Yeah, he was
giving
killed
Mass.
during
So
Mass.
it's very controversial, stood with the poor. And now Junipero Serra, on the opposite side, he's been criticized for the mission system and having the natives
that it has on society, but we're quickly running out of time. What can we expect from Pope Francis moving forward?
Moving forward, we hope that, and a lot of folks that love all the ideas that he's proposing, is that they be turned from ideas and words into action. That it would be great to have folks that are divorced be part of the church and be allowed to have communion. It'd be great to have children born out of wedlock to also be welcomed to the church community. LGBTs and gays be welcomed also into the church. There are many aspects of Christianity or Catholicism that could be more welcoming, that could be more ministerial. So I think it's a hope of folks that love him and that criticize him, that it would be an all-encompassing, more embracing church of our community.
Well, thank you for coming onto the show, Felipe, and sharing your thoughts on this Easter Sunday. I know it's a day where many, actually, two options, right? Many go to church and celebrate in their religion, or many just take the day to take advantage of the sales and just do an Easter egg hunt. But there's an obvious history that comes with today's celebration.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for having me, Wendy. It's great to be back, and hope to have that hours and hours with you with more conversations.
Well, maybe before you go, you can quickly tell us what is the thought behind Easter Sunday?
Oh, the thought behind Easter Sunday is the resurrection of Jesus in the Christian tradition. In the Judaic celebration, it is also it's Easter, and it's also the celebration of the victory over the angels of death. And this goes back to the time of Moses and Egypt. So, but in the Christian world, it is the resurrection, the victorious celebration of Jesus, and it's a time to restore, to rejuvenate, to be born again into. And I'm not trying to preach any religion, but it is
to church this morning.
Yes, but it is a time to be victorious, to start a new chapter in a life, to start a new season as well.
But it also has some kind of foundation with pagan rituals as well.
Absolutely. It's in the pagan rituals. Well, you asked me about the Christian world. In the pagan rituals, it is a time of rebirth. And it's a time that we see in the spring, where you see, and that's why you have the Easter bunny, right? You have in the animal world, in the plant world, everything just comes back to life. New flowers, new trees, new harvest. So it's a time to celebrate. If you're Christian, if you're pagan, if you're Jew, it's a time to start a new chapter in our lives. Yes.
Well, in the pagan holiday, it's the beginning of spring. It's celebrated.
Spring equinox, yes.
Spring equinox. It's celebrated all around the world, and coincidentally, very timely with Easter celebrations today.
You say coincidence? Many folks don't think it's a coincidence.
Right, I say that with a raised eyebrow.
Good.
My guest this morning, again, thank you so much for being here, has been Felipe Agredano, theologian from Harvard, as we've discussed the many advancements, or perhaps critiques, of controversial Pope Francis, a.k.a. Papa Pancho, which many have called him on the cyberwebs.
El Papa Pancho.
El Papa Pancho. For more, you can check out my blog on power106.com. I'm Wendy Carrillo, and this is Knowledge is Power on Power 106. You can follow me on Twitter at Wendy Carrillo, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about this segment and many others. Don't stop recording.